global crisis, of course. We are seeing more speculation, perhaps, that the
We want to begin in Asia, where the coronavirus continues to spread in China, with the number of confirmed cases now in the country climbing above 75,000. Joining me now from Hong Kong is Stephen Engel, Bloomberg's chief North Asia correspondent. Stephen?
Well, there's a lot more confusion on those numbers coming out of China because for the second time in about a week, China has rejigged its methodology again for how to classify confirmed cases of this coronavirus in China that has led to this now becoming a bit of a global crisis, of course. We are seeing more speculation, perhaps, that the data that we're getting is not necessarily reliable, or we're seeing a significant drop-off in the number of confirmed cases. In Hubei province, the epicenter, just 349 new cases reported overnight. Is that because of the new methodology, or do they have the containment efforts under control? That is something that is raising a lot of confusion and questions. Also, it adds to suspicion that officials in China may be prematurely promoting a narrative that they do have the situation under control. All right, this as we have gotten in South Korea, the first death there, as well as a surge in new cases, some 31 new confirmed cases in South Korea that ran through a religious sect. And also in Japan, just yesterday, 2 more deaths were reported there. Also, we're seeing the impact on the prolonged epidemic on businesses. Couple airlines putting out some guidance. Air France, KLM, saying that they could take a hit on this next report card of some $216 million US, and Qantas out of Australia saying they're cutting significantly a lot of their capacity into Asian markets.
Illness. So far, 34 coronavirus cases have been confirmed in the U.S., but there have been more than 76,000 worldwide, the vast majority in China. And overnight, there was a huge surge of cases in South Korea. More than 2,200 people around the world have died. Deborah Pata is in Tokyo, where the disease is now threatening the 2020 Olympics, which are still months away.
Good morning. Japan has been at pains to stress that the Summer Olympics will not be disrupted by the coronavirus outbreak, but they've come under fire for mismanaging the quarantine on the Diamond Princess. Japan has already invested more than $28 billion in infrastructure for the Olympics, and there's around $6 billion in sponsorship at stake. Olympic officials insist the Games will not be cancelled or postponed, but experts point out that the government doesn't have a plan B if the virus continues to spread in this country, other than to cross their fingers and hope it abates in time for the Olympics in July. Their handling of the quarantine process on the now notorious Diamond Princess has done little to restore public confidence in their crisis management ability. And the ship has become the site of the largest cluster of infections outside China. Globally, new pockets of infections have also sprung up, with the most troubling in South Korea, the majority of them linked to a church in Daegu. A woman in her 60s attended a church service before testing positive for the virus. At least 1,000 worshippers have been confined to their homes, schools have been closed, and residents have been told to avoid mass gatherings. The U.S. military base in Daegu has restricted the movement of all personnel there. There are no cases confirmed amongst the Americans, but the measures have been implemented out of an abundance of caution. For CBS This Morning, Saturday, Deborah Pata, Tokyo, Japan.
From China touched down for quarantine. Protesters there clashing with police after a false rumour a handful were infected with the new coronavirus. And tonight, a sombre reality check from the World Health Organization. Although the number of cases outside China is still small, time to stop the spread of the virus may be running out.
The window of opportunity is narrowing, so we need to act quickly before it closes completely.
New clusters of the virus have grown in just the last few days. In northern Italy, this hospital ER is now closed after a patient spread the virus to 5 doctors and nurses and others. Restaurants and schools are also being closed down. In South Korea, a woman spread the virus to nearly 40 people at her church and beyond, with numbers there growing. The CDC tonight assuring Americans the virus isn't spreading in the US right now, but warning it could.
It's very possible, even likely, that it may eventually happen. You may be hearing about schools shutting down and businesses closing in countries in Asia to reduce the potential spread of this virus. The day may come when we will need to implement such measures in the U.S. communities.
Tonight in Japan, the last few hundred passengers and crew now expected to leave the stricken Diamond Princess, with growing questions about how the quarantine was carried out on board.
And Ian joins us now from that cruise ship in Yokohama, Japan. You know, Ian, you're heading to South Korea right after this. So what's the latest on both of those fronts?
Yeah, I mean, it really feels so different here in Asia, the whole atmosphere and the cases that are being reported are continuing to rise. We're heading to South Korea, towards that key city where there's been a significant outbreak. What we understand is this is a woman who was part of a Christian sect. It's been described as a cult by some people, but she was infected. She's been titled a super spreader by authorities there. She didn't know that she was infected, but the way that that particular sect conducts its church services involves people gathering on the ground in confined spaces, and she has passed that virus on to a significant number of people. The number of cases in South Korea doubling overnight, and the government there saying while before it was alert to people flying into the country from overseas, it's now got a very serious domestic problem. It feels it can control it, but it shows the dangers of where this virus may go from here.
Well, Ian, we heard the WHO issue that warning about the window for containment. So how big do they fear this could get?
Yeah, I mean, look, we've heard a lot of warnings. People are concerned that it could become a global pandemic. Now, the overall numbers outside of China are still small. But what we're seeing in Seoul and in South Korea and also now in Italy, and we've seen cases in Iran as well, is that it only takes one person who doesn't necessarily know they've got this virus for it then suddenly to start to multiply in again, areas where people tend to congregate. Again, this case in Iran happened in the religious city of Qom. It's a place where a lot of religious students go. People obviously pray in confined spaces. And it's exactly those kind of scenarios that leads to the spread of the virus. So this could continue to grow and escalate. And we're seeing warnings in the States as well from the CDC. We're not there yet, but warnings that we could get to that point where we're seeing multiple outbreaks in different countries around the world.
Well, we'll definitely stay on the story. Ian Pannell in Japan for us. Thanks, Ian.